Well, Dan Hamza has already told us today that we need to be more rapid and radical in transforming the energy system. And that seems to me to be an excellent time to hear from the regulator. So now I'd like to introduce Richard Smith from Ofgem. Richard's worked in the energy sector for over 20 years, particularly in a number of engineering and operational leadership roles at National Grid ESO. Richard's now co-director of Energy Systems Management and Security at Ofgem. So Richard, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, Janet, and good morning. So by 2050, around 2/3 of electricity generation is predicted to come from weather-dependent wind and solar, compared to 23.8% in 2019. At the same time, there's going to be a huge increase in electricity demand as we move away from petrol cars and gas boilers, with some predictions of a doubling in peak electricity demand by 2045. This presents an enormous challenge. So in that context, I wanted to start by reminding everyone what Ofgem's ultimate priority is: net zero at lowest cost. We know that there's a cost associated with getting to net zero, and many consumers will know this as well. So we need to be open about it. We also know that different consumers are likely to face different costs and challenges. The transition needs to be fair, affordable for all, not just the affluent and digital savvy who are able to actively engage in the market. So we want to ensure that where there are benefits, that all consumers are the recipients, not just a few. We also need to ensure that no single generation is left burdened with the cost. For consumers to support the path to net zero, we, that's industry, regulator and government, need to demonstrate head on that every pound of investment to get there is targeted and well spent. Now, this doesn't just apply to domestic consumers. This also applies to businesses, large and small. And as we recover economically from the pandemic, this is more important than ever. If we don't maintain public support for net zero, the transition will be far more difficult, especially when we need to ask consumers to make major changes to the way they use and interact with energy. In March, we published our Forward Work programme, which set out how we will deliver Ofgem's new strategic framework over the next 5 years. In this, we recognised our two enduring priorities, vital roles that we will continue to perform. That's delivering our core regulatory function of regulating the sector to ensure security of supply and protect the interests of consumers, and delivering current and future government schemes to advance decarbonisation and support vulnerable consumers. But in addition to that, we've also identified 5 strategic change programmes where Ofgem can shape the energy system to deliver real change in the interests of consumers and the climate. This will determine where we direct our resources so we can have the greatest impact. Firstly, we'll enable investment in low carbon infrastructure needed to deliver net zero. Secondly, we will need to deliver a future retail market with innovative new retail products that, for example, enable consumers to benefit from the flexibility they can provide, whilst ensuring protections are in place for all. Thirdly, we'll promote energy system governance arrangements that are fit for the future, including for Ofgem's role. Fourth, to balance the system and keep costs down as the level of intermittent renewables rises, we will need full chain flexibility, for example, through flexible charging of electric vehicles. And fifth, we will unlock the benefits of data and digitalisation to enable these changes at least cost. It's full chain flexibility that I wanted to talk about today. Our vision is for a secure, affordable, net zero system where all connected resources can contribute their full efficient potential to meeting system needs by flexibly responding to available energy and network resources. A more flexible energy system could reduce future system costs dramatically. And Carbon Brief's own report today estimates net savings of up to 16.7 billion a year by 2050. Flexibility will enable us to reduce the amount of new generation, storage and network infrastructure that has to be built as we decarbonise generation and as demand for electricity increases with more electric vehicles and heat pumps rolled out. The financial benefits of flexibility come from users across the system and at all levels being able to respond to operational requirements in real time and where it is most needed on the networks. Given the scale of that requirement, we're going to need a vast range of different sources for flexibility. For example, dispatchable low carbon generation, interconnectors, dedicated storage, vehicle to grid capability, and demand-side response. It is clear that as a result, the makeup of the future energy system is going to look vastly different to today's. Even in the short term, over the next 10 years, we're going to see some huge changes and face some short-term challenges that we will need to overcome. The retirement of traditional fossil fuel generators and an increase in proportion of renewable generation, often in more remote locations, can drive up network costs and make system management more challenging. And if you doubt the pace at which all of this scales, just note that on the 3rd of May, earlier this month, at 3:30 in the afternoon, wind made up 48.4% of the UK's electricity. Much higher demand for electricity through electric vehicle uptake and the decarbonisation of heat will also be a challenge. And it might seem like early days, but there is still a high pace of change, with electricity consumption for road transport increasing by 52% between 2019 and 2020. These short-term challenges have the potential to put upward pressure on system costs, but they also offer new opportunities as well. More EVs, for example, whilst they do mean more demand for electricity, on the flip side, also mean we have a vast new source of battery storage we can take advantage of to help balance and operate the system. What we need to do now is put the building blocks in place to deliver a fully flexible system so we can realise these benefits. Now, we've identified 3 priority areas where we think we can maximise on these opportunities. Priority 1, system planning and operation. What needs to change in the way we operate and plan the system? How do we ensure the structures and processes are in place for effective planning? Do government, industry and regulator have all the tools they need? Priority 2, signals to incentivise flexible behaviour and investment. What signals are needed to incentivise the behaviours to ensure efficient investment? How do we clearly signal opportunities and reward behaviour of those that are able to provide flexibility, helping us reduce costs and reduce constraints, whilst also bringing more clean power online? Priority 3, consumer behaviour. What are the consumer needs that facilitate the delivery of flexibility? How do we increase the response to system constraints from all consumers, large and small, industrial, commercial and domestic? And how do we ensure that all consumers are able to benefit from this, not just those with the technical know-how? So starting with priority 1, system planning and operation. We need a smart digital electricity system that can effectively maintain security of supply and manage the distribution networks in a more active way. Underpinning this is the need for much greater visibility of supply and demand on the networks, including the assets that can provide flexibility. This will be largely enabled by better data access and greater transparency. We want to make sure anyone who can help provide flexibility has a route to market. For consumers, this means ensuring that they have the opportunity to provide flexibility and are made aware of that opportunity. We know some consumers will be more engaged than others, so we want to make that group as large as possible and ensure no one is left out. For investors, we want to ensure they have the information and data they need to make informed and targeted investment decisions that benefit the system. Now, the electricity system operator has already made some positive steps here and opened up new markets for flexibility. This will have to go much further. But as an example, in October, the ESO launched its new rapid frequency response service called Dynamic Containment. Contracted volumes have grown steadily, and over 600 megawatts of units are now participating in the daily auctions. Battery storage so far has been the dominant providers of this high-value service. We've also seen some really positive progress from network companies and have been encouraged by local networks tendering for flexibility, with 2 gigawatt hours put to tender in 2020 and avoiding more network build. An example here is in SSE Network's flexibility contracts on Islay in the Western Isles, which have delivered cost savings of just over 250,000 and avoided just over 3,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions. As part of RIIO-2, we've also included new requirements for network companies to share more data and develop truly coordinated markets to help deliver these flexible resources. And as part of RIIO-ED2, we are challenging the distribution network operators to give local providers of flexibility more access to new markets, delivering greater value for consumers. Turning to priority 2, signals. We need accurate and widespread signals of the value of flexibility. We want the value of flexibility to be recognised in prices so that market players are incentivized to provide flexibility services and can see how they can provide it in an intelligent way when and where it is most needed and be further rewarded for that. We know there are lots of different signals that investors look at that help determine when and where they'll invest, including on planning regulations, site availability, network charges, availability of capital, capacity market contracts, balancing services contracts, just to name a few. We're already taking a long, hard look at how network charges can be used to incentivize efficient use of the network as part of our significant code review. But we will look at charges more broadly and go further where necessary. We expect to shortly be publishing our Minded to decisions on our access reforms, in which we want to address some of the distortions that exist today, but also ensure we remove barriers that exist for low carbon investment. However, we're also mindful of and will take consideration of some of the challenges businesses will face in adapting to how we implement changes. Ultimately, we want to make sure signals are as transparent, predictable, and clear as possible to help support investors by indicating to them where their investments would be best targeted to support the transition to net zero and give them the confidence to do so. Priority 3, consumer behaviours to drive flexibility. Now, consumers already play a very significant role in the energy system, and we need to consider how to meet their needs in a system that requires greater flexibility. There are some big questions here about how consumers will want to engage, including how to best utilise the services from consumers who actively engage with flexibility markets, for example, in deciding to turn on their washing machine at a particular time of day. There's also the question of how to meet the needs of passive engagers who may be reliant on engagement via a third party, such as those who have smart vehicle to grid charging that will automatically draw power when demand is low overnight without them having to do a thing. There are still other groups that we have less visibility of, and we need to understand their needs as well and look carefully at the different barriers they might face when presented with these new opportunities, including those people who just aren't engaged at all. Our behavioural insights team has an ongoing piece of research, Consumers in Decarbonisation, looking at this question, including how we can ensure we protect the most vulnerable, and how we avoid a digital divide, which could potentially be even more damaging than the current divide between those who engage and those who do not or cannot. Underpinning all of this is the need for energy service providers to innovate and develop simple and easy to use technology-based products that are targeted at consumers with the potential to deliver low-cost, high-value flexibility. We want to work closely with suppliers and others on this to understand what the barriers that they face are to rolling out these kind of products. On a technical level, the rollout of smart meters and half-hourly settlement will also play a huge part in enabling some of these technologies and enable consumers to engage and participate in the market. We also have our Innovation Link service, through which we support innovators in navigating energy regulation and to trial and bring innovations to market. For example, we've been working with PowerVault, a designer and manufacturer of smart energy storage systems for the home. During the development of their third-generation battery, they approached Innovation Link to help inform their market strategy and R&D. We provided them with information about different supply models, how network charges operate, and various settlement considerations. Our feedback helped shape their route to market strategy, informing their decision to partner with energy suppliers to market and sell their product. In late 2018, PowerVault partnered with EDF Energy to offer a tariff that subsidised the cost of a PowerVault for domestic consumers. And more recently, they have entered into a partnership with Gluza, OVO Group's intelligent energy platform, to enable local grid operators to manage demand by tapping into PowerVault's inbuilt device flexibility. Working for 4.5 years with innovators like PowerVault, answering queries, has helped us understand what barriers new products and services face, what it takes to run a virtual power plant, to offer smart optimization services, or to sell EV tariffs. We're using this knowledge to inform our strategic change program, and in particular, our future retail strategy. Our Innovation Link service, including our regulatory sandbox, is always open, and we would always encourage innovators. If you have an innovative product that is able to help drive flexibility and support consumers and face challenges getting to market, come and speak to us. Ofgem's role is to ensure we meet net zero in a fair, sustainable way that does not overburden current or future generations with the costs of hitting net zero. And it's for this reason that full chain flexibility is a key strategic priority for us. We want to be able to take advantage of a fully flexible system to bring more renewable generation online, while simultaneously keeping costs down for all consumers, domestic, commercial, and industrial. We'll be setting more out in the near future on how we'll be engaging with stakeholders on all three of the key areas of this programme that I've set out today. So as a reminder, that's looking at system planning and operation and changing it to ensure we have the right structures in place, making sure the right signals are in place to incentivise flexible behaviour and encourage investment that supports a more flexible system, and making sure that consumer behaviour supports flexibility and that domestic and large consumers are able to benefit from any flexibility they provide. We recognise that there are a huge number of ways to achieve this vision. We also know that this will be a cross-cutting piece of work and that we will need input from parties from across the energy sector and beyond. In the lead up to COP26, there is also a real opportunity to look at what is happening around the world with regards to flexibility and to learn from others. But my message to everyone here today is that we want this to be a collaborative process and want to engage very closely with all those that have a stake in this and are able to help deliver this ambition. There's a real urgency to hitting net zero now, especially with the new government's ambition for a 78% reduction in emissions by 2035. There are costs associated with meeting net zero, which is why a programme that enables us to bring more renewables online while simultaneously reducing costs as much as possible is a key priority for us. Thank you. Back to you, Janet.